morning, grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka blenderhd, Blender HD on Twitter. You can follow me there. And this is the show where we go over a little bit about yesterday's slate. We review some stuff. We go over today's slate a little bit. You never know. It's NBA DFS. What we talk about now at 11 o'clock in the morning, Eastern time, may mean absolutely nothing 8 hours from now when the slate locks. So mostly talk about DFS strategy. So if you're in the YouTube chat, you know I love you the most. You show up here live. The podcast people, screw those people. They listen later, right? You could go to iTunes, DFS pregame show, search for it. You could actually listen to this in a podcast form, rate and review it there. But the YouTube people, they're the best people. I see Daniel Hutchins in chat. I see Alex Santi, Trey McRae, DJ Cicero, Jupocalypse, Milo Kaminsky, Kevin Copeland, Mr. Plow, Meat Plow, my favorite guy, Meat Plow's here. And they do what they do best. They keep my mango juice. It's still the mango juice. Still haven't gotten the regular stuff, the apple mango. Someone had, I made the task yesterday to go out and get Mott's apple mango. And you tell me if you taste any apple juice in there. I think they're lying. I think they're lying to us. Tastes like mango juice, but to keep it cold throughout the show, hit the thumbs up button, hit those thummy thumbs, hit the subscribe button if you're new here, and hit the notification bell to know that when we go live in the morning. So you never miss this show. So I'm looking in the chat. Everyone's here. Good, great lineups last night. Was one player away for Meat Plow. You're always just one player away, right? Oh, 2v2. Oh, but just hit that guy, right? Yesterday on Draftkings was a tough slate. It was legitimately a tough slate. And I don't want to call it a tough. It's a normal slate, right? We're so used to getting value, especially with COVID and people sitting and load management. We're used to like every day. If it was a 7-game slate, there'd be some, 3 guys would be out from some team, right? Someone's sitting, so okay. So we're going to get value here, and we're going to find some 4K player that really should be 5,500, right? We'll find some 6K player that should be 7,500. The sites will misprice someone. DraftKings was pretty efficiently priced, and that's why you have to make a lot of concessions in order to make good lineups. I mean, we had like Sterling Brown off the bench at 3,200 being 22% owned, right? With Frank Mason. Right? Frank Mason off the bench. Of course, Cole Anthony ended up getting injured, and Frank Mason played a whole lot more. He was considered a quote value. Played Dwayne Bacon, right? With the Magic guys were like value. Rudy Gay was 13%. You had to find someone for the power forward spot. Obviously, Josh Hart, if you played him, I mean, he went nutso. He was only 1% owned. But you had to find someone like that to fill out your lineups. I mean, Jeremy Grant and Nikola Vucevic, they were chalk, right? John Wall, Dejounte Murray, who even on a back-to-back with Pop, he was chalky. People went to 5K Blake Griffin, right? I said yesterday, I don't feel thrilled about playing Blake Griffin, but on the context of this slate, you're going to have to fill the power forward spot with someone, right? It was either Griffin or Oubre. You don't feel that great doing that. Eric Gordon was 16% owned because with Oladipo out, it's like, okay, I guess I'm paying $6,200 for Eric Gordon. So it was a tough slate in comparison to a lot of slates that we've seen this year on DraftKings. So construction was key. Construction was very key on this slate because like power forward was weak. Point guard, you most likely were playing Murray or Wall. But you could have played Harden, Irving. There were a lot of players were going under-owned because just how are you going to make that construction? How are you fitting in Harden? How are you playing? If you played Miles Plumlee, Mason Plumlee, one of the Plumlees. I mean, you did great. That basically that first game, like all the points came from that game, right? If you played Irving, Harden, and like 4 Pistons, like you did great. But then we got the news that Devin Vassell was going to start for the Spurs, and a lot of people went there. You could see I pulled up a bunch of 150 maxers in the pull-up jumper from last night. And I always say this. Like I didn't go there. I had 5 lineups. I didn't go with Devin Vassell because I think his usage just plummets in the starting unit, in that unit. Right. Murray, Vassell, DeRozan, Johnson, Pirtle. Like I'd rather keep Rudy Gay than play Devin Vassell. But you see a lot of people did switch over to get more exposure because it makes sense after lock. Less people are likely to switch. So he only came in at about 10% owned. So I think if you're playing the lower stakes, I think that was a good move, even though he only got 15 points. Like, be more inclined at the lower stakes to take advantage of late news, even if it's just minimal, right? Like, who cares? Right, Devin Vassell. Oh, well, okay. So should I rearrange all my lineups because of that? Maybe not all of them, but less people will. He didn't get there. I'm not talking about, oh, you should have played that guy, but be more inclined. Would you rather have played a 10% owned Devin Vassell or a 22% owned Sterling Brown when the projections were equivalent? Right. You're going to play the lower owned guy. I mean, Vooch was chalk in the center spot, 37%. But, I mean, if you got down, I mean, some people played Cousins, even at 7,400 on DraftKings, and he didn't even see the fourth quarter again. The guy that was interesting that I had was Willie Hernangomez. Where did he go? He was only like 2%. He was barely owned. He was 2% owned or something. I can't even find him. Where is he? Hernangomez. Okay, I guess we have an error in here. I don't know. He's missing. He's missing from Results TV. Can someone find him? Willie Hernangomez is missing. No, I played him because the punt at the center spot. That was the most to me, that was the most natural thing to do with Vooch being chalk, and then you couldn't fill other spots in with guys that were worth playing, right? So I had 5 lineups. I had 2 lineups with Willie Hernangomez at center, and then playing like Kyrie Irving and Jeremy Grant together, and then being able to play Oubre, basically punting in the center spot, so you're able to play. You don't have to play Frank Mason. You don't have to play Sterling Brown. You don't have to play Dwayne Bacon. Where that's your cheap guy, and then you kind of go in the middle of the road. I played some like Lonzo Ball with him, like Lonzo Ball and Eric Gordon. Got a little bit more balanced lineups, and the easiest way to get leverage was on Vooch. Same for Jeremy Grant, but Jeremy Grant fills small forward, power forward, which who am I putting there? I'd rather just play Jeremy Grant at that point. So I know Vooch put up 61 points. I know. And you could have played Hernangomez and Vooch together. That was possible. But I made some constructions like that. Especially when everyone was going to gravitate towards very similar, like, punt type of plays. Like, there's no reason why Sterling Brown should be 22% owned. I mean, he did well, right? He got 28 points for $3,200. No, he did fine, but I mean, in comparison, there were other guys down there. You could play James Ennis, right? What's the big difference between Ennis, Bacon, Vassell, Sterling Brown, Frank Mason? I mean, all those guys down there. If you have Josh Jackson, Seth Curry, I mean, Jay Sean Tate, like anything like 4,500 down, 4,700 down, like they were practically all the same player. Virtually, you could have played anyone. So looking at some sharper players, we could see that, like Mr. Wonka Man, like not much Sterling Brown, like Giant Squid, nothing, no Sterling Brown. A lot of Deontay Murray, that didn't get there. A lot of Kelly Oubre, Terrence Ross, Devin Vassell, Patty Mills. Okay, I would assume, let's see, 38% down here for Patty Mills and Deontay Murray. So playing them both together, I'm not a huge fan of that, but I guess that could work. Patty Mills was only like 4,400. Daniel House, right. Play House instead of Sterling Brown. Play Pirtle instead of Vooch, right? We have Pirtle down here. I think Giant Squid's the only one. Right? He has a 1% for E. Hafner. Right, so a little bit less Vucevic, right? So if you're going to play Pirtle, you're going to have less Vooch in your lineups. So this is what I do. I mean, I'm looking at this for the first time. Like, this is what I do. Bring up some 150 max players, ones that placed fairly high. I mean, I go through the screens, look for ones that at least had a lineup in the top, 100 or so, and then start looking at what type of constructions were they doing. I mean, multiple types of constructions, and see, were they doing constructions that were very similar to what I was doing, regardless of the results. Yeah, I had out of my 5 lineups, I had 2 Murray lineups. Okay, I get it. Okay, that's there. I had Vooch, Grant, Wall, like Blake in 2 lineups. I had Oubre, I think I had Oubre in all my lineups, just to fill someone in the mid range in the small forward and power forward spot. Frank Mason, sure. I mean, like, I'm looking pretty much at the lineups that I had. Like, yeah, I didn't have any Cousins, but I had Rudy Gay, right? I had Donovan Mitchell lineup. I had Donovan Mitchell and Jaylen Brown together, and Brown was barely owned. Where's Brown down here? He was questionable, right? Okay, down here. So yeah, some constructions like that. He got 43 points, but it filled that small forward spot, like you're playing Jaylen Brown over Jeremy Grant or Oubre or something like that, and then it makes it natural that the Boston player I stack with a Utah player, and I had Mitchell or Gobert with that. So 3%. Same thing I did with Ben Simmons. Like, Ben Simmons is in here, right? 5%, right? 5% owned. Barely anyone had him. You pair Ben Simmons. I also had like a Ben Simmons Rashawn Holmes lineup. Yeah, that didn't get there. Sure, I guess that didn't get there. But at 4% for Holmes and 5% for Simmons on a slate where, some of these guys are 40, 30%, 40%. Murray's 36%. Wall is 30%. I'll take the 6-1, the 7-1 ownership gap. It's not going to happen often enough for them to be 7-1 in ownership. So I'll take a shot. Didn't work, but I mean, that's what you're doing every slate. You're taking shots like that every slate. 90% of the time, it doesn't work out. I know. It's a tough life out there. The 10% of the time that it does work out, you're hopefully not just min cashing, right? You're making 3x, 5x, 10x, 100x in those situations. So going into the YouTube chat, let's see. Scrolling back. I always scroll back, so feel free to type it in. I'll always find all the messages in the chat. Josiah Smith asks, haven't hit big in a bit, but out of my 20 to 30 lineups, I always have at least one top 1% lineup. Is this a good sign that I'm on the right track process-wise, or just luck? Well, I mean, you could always go into RotoTracker and look at your finishing positions and see. It depends on the size of the contest. Like a top 1% in the pull-up jumper. I mean, the pull-up jumper's 58,000 entries. So top 1% is 588th place. That doesn't mean all that much. You'd rather see what's in the top 0.1%, the top 58. If you're playing large field. Now, if you're playing smaller field stuff, top 1% would be fine. If the contest was only 588 entries, the top 1% would be like top 5, right? Right? That would be fine, right? Even if it was a 5,000 entry contest, top 50. Okay, get your lineups in the top 50. That's pretty good. Top 1% in these titles. I mean, yes, you still need to get it up there in some capacity, but top 1%, maybe top 0.5%, top 0.1%, a little bit more of a judge. But in general, like once you start getting towards those top equity spots, at least near it, it's really variance at that. Then there's whatever way the cookie crumbles. So yes, that type of thought process, that type of analysis is the better way to judge for your GPP play. If you're rarely ever getting lineups into the top 1% or more, then you're either playing lineups that are too safe, so they're all getting bunched up by the min cash line, or you're playing lineups that don't project well at all, and you're getting a lot in the real bottom. Because you're looking to judge over the course of a season. So yes, you're not gonna hit big often at all, and you're gonna lose. And you're gonna lose money. You're gonna have a negative ROI until you hit one of the top spots. But you need to give yourself a chance. If you're playing large field contests like the 58,000 entries, and you're playing 20 to 30 lineups, and like almost every day, every other day, you're getting one lineup in the top 40, top 50, even top 100, you're on the right track. I think that's a good way to judge. If it's been a month since you've gotten anything in the top 100, then maybe you have to reassess what you're doing. Maybe you're not building enough top high equity lineups. Let's see. Robbie Steves asks, curious to see as you have switched to single entry 3 max. Well, I'm focusing on it. That doesn't mean I'm going to keep it that way. If I'm focusing on finding EV and the cumulative game ownership rather than individual player ownership, yeah, it's all about lineups and not players. You're always doing. It doesn't matter if it's single entry 3 max or large field or anything. Individual player ownership doesn't mean anything. It's in relation to the rest of your lineup. You could have played all the chalk yesterday and Josh Hart and won, right? Because Josh Hart was 1% and put up 53 points for 4,400. So you could have done. So cumulatively, the sum is still going to be a high number. You have that 1% guy, like that lineup is leveraged enough. Yet you have another lineup that has a lower cumulative ownership sum and it wouldn't be leveraged enough because it's like a whole bunch of 20% owned guys and not like 40%, 30%, and a 1%. So that's why product, the multiplication of it, is a little bit more accurate than for adding it all together. But yeah, if I'm playing smaller field single entry 3 max and I have Josh Hart at 1% of my lineup, I'm good. I'm like there's nothing, no more leverage. I don't need anything, right? I'm done, right? So yes, if I'm playing that, if I'm fading Vooch and Grant, and then just building a lineup, and I'm playing a 400 entry contest, like I'm good. Like I don't have to worry about anything. Just build what's the best projected lineup at that point, right? That doesn't have negative correlation in it. Like done, you're good. It's just easier. You don't have to get as low in the projection and as low with the ownership in those types of contests. That's why a lot of times in the past I've had issues when I'm not focusing just on that. I'm doing a lot of large field stuff, and then I'm also playing single entry 3 max, and then my lineups would be like over leveraged. So I'm building lineups for a 58,000 person contest. Then I'm like, okay, well, let me take the 3 best lineups from here and kind of throw them into those 3 contests and then into a 400 person contest. It's like probably not optimal to do. So when I started focusing on single entry and 3 max, a lot of times I look at my lineups and go, seems too cashy, seems too chalky to me. Because I'm so used to building for very large field contests. And then I see that like, no, these are lineups that can win. It seems too chalky. As long as I get a 2v2, rip, do something like that. And the ownership sum is fine, and the projection is like 3 points off the optimal or something. And I'm like, oh, this could win. Yeah, this could do it. Sometimes I get a little bit more contrarian than that, but it's not like in the past where a lot of times like in the lineup would be like, wow, it's like way too low owned, which is still fine. It still projects well. But like, do I need to have that low ownership in a 400, 500 entry contest? I don't. Going through the YouTube chat a bit. Matthew P says, I'm shocked some of these sharper guys still loaded up on main Spurs on 3 games and 4 nights and second half of a back-to-back. Well, I mean, we've seen it work out, right? I know Popovich is like on back-to-backs and stuff like that, does funky things with his rotation. But that doesn't mean DeRozan couldn't have had a great game. That doesn't mean he couldn't have played 34 minutes. Very unpredictable. But yes, I was more inclined last night to not play Dejounte Murray. Just it's very hard on DraftKings to make lineups. Like you have to. That's why I use Lonzo Ball in that spot, right? Like Dejounte Murray was what 65, 6,800, something like that. I'll play Lonzo Ball instead. I'll play Eric Gordon, some other 6K guy. The cheaper guys I didn't mind. Like I played Rudy Gay. Okay, I don't mind that. I don't mind even Vassell. I didn't mind. Like Jelani Walker ended up on a minutes limit, so you were going to play him for 18 to 20 minutes. But yeah, I didn't play DeRozan. I didn't play anyone. I mean, I think Rudy Gay and Murray was in two lineups because that's what he projected, and he was in there. I mean, sometimes he's the last guy. Like, what else am I supposed to do? He projects X amount, and I'm supposed to leave like 1,000 on the table and not play him and play Eric Bledsoe instead. I mean, yes, I guess I could. You're right, I could. But I didn't. But I was looking to avoid Murray. I agree with you. I was looking to avoid the expensive Spurs on the slate, but I still managed to get to Murray in two lineups. Matthew P. said Willie was not supposed to close over Adams. Well, yeah, of course not. I didn't play Willie Hernangomez because I thought he was going to close. I played him because he was 3,500, 3,200 in the center spot. And he's a good fantasy points per minute player. It was the value last night was suspect all over the place. You're playing Sterling Brown and Devin Vassell. I mean, so don't question my I can't believe you played Willie Hernangomez. He didn't project that badly. Even for 18, if he got 18 minutes, that's all I need. 18 minutes, he's more than a fantasy point per minute player. He could have gotten 22 in 18 minutes. And I look at Sterling Brown, I look at some of these other guys and go, James Ennis, Gary Clark, and go, I think he could beat him out. And then I know that since Vooch is chalk, that I just need Vooch to fail and play Hernangomez and just get 22 points there. That was my thought process. Just so happened that Hernangomez put up 38 points, but I didn't predict that. I didn't know. If Hernangomez walks into more minutes, he's going to crush because he's a high usage player, high fantasy point per minute player. I'm more likely when taking shots on guys like that, on cheap guys, to side with the fantasy points per minute guy than the guy with the most minutes. I think a lot of people do it the opposite. Oh, I gotta tape some cheap 3K level guy. Do it, and Tony Snell is starting, right? It's like Tony Snell's going to play 36 minutes. Willie Hernangomez is going to play like 18 minutes. It's like most of the time Tony Snell's going to play 30. Yeah, great. He's going to play 36 minutes and get 7% usage. You're rarely going to see a game where Tony Snell walks into more usage, right? Just so happens that they're just giving him the ball and on the 3-point line, and he's hitting 7 3-pointers. It happens once in a blue moon, but it doesn't happen often. So where's Tony Snell's opportunity for a ceiling? He's already playing 36 minutes, right? In that scenario. What is he going to walk into 40? What's that going to do? If anything, he's going to walk into less minutes. But how is he going to walk into 25% usage? Like that so rarely ever happens. But the high fantasy point per minute player, like we see someone like Jordan Clarkson, right? He doesn't start. But like the more minutes that he walks into, the more points you get because he always shoots the ball. He's a high usage player off the bench. Terrence Ross, like those types of guys. Oh, it's only 24 minutes. He's only projected for 24 minutes. Well, what happens if he walks into 30? Well, that extra 6 minutes is going to be productive. So I'm more likely to take a shot on those types of guys off the bench, cheap guys that are normally high usage players, high fantasy point per minute players that could walk into extra minutes. Foul trouble, right? I mean, it happens. One of the starters gets into foul trouble. Next thing you know, right? Mitch Robinson gets into foul trouble, and Nerlens Noel plays 31 minutes. And there you go. Nerlens Noel is a high fantasy point per minute player. So it's sitting there with 35 points at near minimum price. How did you know? You take a shot. Let's go through some more of the questions. Meat Plow says, Mr. Plow. Good morning, Mr. Plow. I stopped playing those big 50K entry games after listening to the show and theory of DFS. You can still play them. Dude, I played them all the time. I mean, the weakest players are in these contests. There's like 20% of lineups in these contests that are like dead money. So even though the rake's 15%, it's almost in the big field contests are great. It's just that the variance is absurd. I mean, look at the price. I mean, it's 100,000 the first, 30,000. I mean, they split this. 10,000 on look. You can come in top 10 and get like $2,200, $1,900. Right? You're beating out 58,814 players and entries, and here's $2,000, right? So you have to play a lot, and you have to, if you bink once a year, that's it. But you're going to lose all the other times. So you could absolutely. It depends on how much variance you want to embrace in your game, which is more advantageous. Me, I'm experimenting this year because I played the large field contest and profitable at it. But it's reliant on binking 1 or 2 times a year. And that may not happen. In 2016, I got 2 binks. 2017, I got 2 binks. 2018, got 2 binks. 2019, I got 2 binks. 2020, got 1 bink. That 1 bink makes up for all the losing. So it's like my profitability last year was much lower. And it was only on the basis of not having that second bink. So I posited, and like, do I want to continue going through the stress and swings of trying to bink these large field contests, which I could. I just have to have a much longer outlook on it. Or can I make the same amount of money without having to do this? Playing diversified cash games at a higher level, and by playing the smaller single entry 3-max GPPs. I mean, that's what I'm positing. Because if we take a look, I'll show you. I mean, I'll bring up my roto tracker. I'm completely transparent. This is my roto tracker as of what, like maybe 2 days ago. I think I uploaded on Sunday. Okay, so for the year, right now. So for the year right now, I'm up $23,000. Right. But I have a nice, win in soccer. I have some 2 nice GPP small field stuff in NBA. But if we take a look like year by year, I'll go to dates. So you go year, right? Year by year. Got to kind of get rid of 2015 because I just started playing, right? You could tell by the wagered 4907, right? So it's like first year, 43,000 profit, 68,000 in 2017, 193,000 in 2018. There's a 100K win in there. 2019, 52,000. But then 2020, because I only had 1 bink, it was just under $7,000. So I'm looking, my goal is to get somewhere between 50 and 75,000, right? Yeah, I may have a great year like this, but like a 68,000, a 52,000, like somewhere in that range. But this is all dependent on, these are on 2 binks, 2 binks, 2 binks. Can I get there without having to like big large field GPP? Well, as of right now, I don't expect it to keep up, but a month and a week, right? 5 weeks in, I'm already up $23,000. Let's say we cut that to 10. Let's say that January was a great month. Let's say in an average month is somewhere between 5 and 10,000. Right? Multiply that by 12. That comes to right, 5,000. That's $60,000 to $100,000, $120,000. without having one big 50K here, 30K there, where it's just like, oh, 5K there, 10K there. There's the smaller field contests. So that's what I'm hoping for. If I get to the same amount regardless, and I have to minimize, and I'm minimizing my risk doing so, then why not? That's just the way that I think. I'm not in this for glory and screenshots. I'm in this for money. But yeah, but don't necessarily be swayed to like not play large field GPPs. Like, I'm not saying not to play them. I may end up doing both. Probably in baseball, I'll probably play the large field GPPs as well as the single, as well as everything. Baseball only because it's easier to manage. NBA is much harder because of all the moving pieces. This guy's out, this guy's in. Got to change lineups. Like in baseball, most likely by the time you're not late swapping much, right? You're not getting, 15 minutes after lock that this pitcher scratch. You get it once in a while. This batter's out. You get a little bit more than it has been, but not as much as basketball. So then at least, okay, now I could focus on this and then also do that. Also make stacks for this. Also play cash games. Play multiple sites. A little bit more durable. And NBA DFS, it's a lot of work. Rob B asks, on slates like yesterday, when there's no obvious value or smash plays, do you add players with a lower smash rate but a good point per dollar value? Yes. When there's limited value, people are going, like, there's going to be like someone like Sterling Brown or Vassell or whoever, Frank Mason. Like, these are going to be guys that they project like 1 or 2 points higher than other players in that range. And they have a smash percentage of like 18 to 20%. And then there are guys below them that are like smash percentage of 12% and a little bit one next less point. But the ownership difference is going to be dramatic. So yes, on slates where there's no obvious value, like there's 20 guys that could be equal to each other, but like 2 or 3 end up being chalky. Only because they are slightly better. They're just slightly. Frank Mason, slightly better than whoever else was at 3,300. Just slightly. They were better. But they were projected better by a point or two. But in the grand scheme of things, for a $3,300 player, hence Willie Hernangomez. He was 2% owned. So I'm like, why not play him? If people are playing Frank Mason, I'll play Willie Hernangomez. People are playing Sterling Brown, I'll play Willie Hernangomez. And I get leverage off of the center spot. So that's exactly the reason I did. It's not like his smash percentage or his RGV or anything was good. It wasn't horrible, right? It was in the same range as those types of players. So why not play the lower owned one? And you could have chosen someone else. It didn't have to be Hernangomez. Just happened to be that for me. You're going to play, so I mean, who knows who you're going to play? You could play, there were other guys. That's why I said James Ennis. He was barely owned. All right, why not? Why not James Ennis? Why not? Well, he only had a 14% smash. Well, who cares? The difference between 14 and 18. They all have negative salary implied values, right? So what's the difference between, oh, this guy's 1 point lower? Grand scheme of things, 1 point doesn't matter all that much. Okay, let's see. Going through the YouTube chat. Okay, this is a decent question. Jamal Faruqi, can you quantify the correlation of one lineup with another? In finance, we build portfolios with negative correlated assets for diversification. Does this exist in DFS? So the 150 has inter-lineup diversification. Yes, you do. That's what exposures are. That's the reason why you use exposures. But no optimizer has like a correlation coefficient for each individual lineup. I think they should add that. I said that, didn't I say that yesterday or the day before? That I'd like to have it so that, like, in baseball, like in our baseball, in lineup HQ, you could see the number of stacks that you have. Like, you could see, oh, you have 5-man Boston with 3-man Toronto. Like, you could see that. Because it's natural. In baseball, most likely you're stacking. So that's going to be a core proponent of what you're doing in lineup HQ. But for basketball, you don't get the stack. Like stacking is not as much of a thing. But I still would like to know, like, how many lineups do I have that are 4v4s of each other, or 3v3s, or 2v2s, or 1v1s? Like, that's what I would like, because you could set the unique players to 1, but that's like at least 1. Some of your lineups will have 5 different players. Some of your lineups have 3 different players from one another. But like, if you set it to 1 and you run it, it's quite possible all of your lineups are 1v1s or 2v2s. Yet maybe you want to have some 4v4s and 5v5s. Maybe there's a setting that we could add to do that. Is it going to be useful? I don't know. It seems like it could be. Where instead of number of unique players, like here, instead of number of unique players, what you're doing is like advanced setting, like how many percent 1v1, how many percent 2v2, how many percent 3v, like that type of thing. And then it would give you the output like that. That's the right way of thinking. Let me answer the question. Is that's the right way of thinking when it comes to diversification? Does that calculation exist in any optimizer currently? No. But you could do that in Excel, right? You could export your lineups, go into Excel, compare the differences between the rows, right? You could set that formula up, and it could tell you. So you could quantify the correlation of one lineup to each other. So you could properly weigh your diversification in a lineup, in an entire lineup build, and in their entire portfolio. Yes. But a lot of times you could do that through common sense, just using exposures. Like, I know if I'm capping my exposure on Vooch, I'm capping my exposure on Jeremy Grant, if I'm capping my exposure, if I'm setting a group to not play this guy with that guy together, like, I'm naturally going to get not just 1v1s. I'm going to get 3v3s, 4v4s. So I'm telling it, like, don't pair these two together. Don't pair those two together. Don't play 3 of these guys, right? And I only want 20% of that. So, like, you can kind of piece that together using logic in your head with the player exposures. Let's see. Shane Dowdy asks, if you're running bad for a month, do you look at your process and try to change things? I think you should always look at your process. Does it mean that you have to change things? Not necessarily. You should always look at your process. But running bad for a month is welcome to DFS. Now, if you're running bad for a month, if you're losing a month straight in cash games, I'd probably reassess, right? You're probably like, the variance in cash games is much lower. But if you're playing large field GPPs and you're running bad for a month, like, well, welcome to the party, pal. Welcome to the party, dude. You can run bad for 4 months. You can run bad for you can run bad for a whole year. That's not out of the question. Doesn't mean you're playing bad. That's why studying results DB, looking at your roto tracker, looking at your finishing positions. Doesn't mean you have to overhaul everything after a month. Are you running bad or are you playing bad? Sometimes it's very hard to tell. As someone that's played for 5.5 years and playing it, as a primary portion of my income, it's a lot of times it's hard for me to tell. But running bad for a month is not weird. That's not weird. You're not, oh my God, I must be the worst player in the world. No. Some of the best players in the world run bad for a year. Well within the range of outcomes. That's why bankroll management's a big thing. Right? I'm doing great for 2 weeks, and I got to up my play, and then great, you up your play during the time that you're going to have the biggest downswing of your life. Like that's not the best way to go. Sean Rogers says, after yesterday's conversation about why we should play multiple sites, I played DK for the first time. FanDuel single entries fell short, but DK single entries made me very profitable overall for the night. Thank you. Right, diversifying. You're trying to minimize your risk by diversifying. You're trying to minimize the variance by diversifying. you're going to be capping your upside, right? Be much better to just shove your money in. If you take a look yesterday, for instance, in cash games, right? Haven't we been seeing on the pregame show, because I show it all the time, that FanDuel is like carrying the load. Well, FanDuel last night was horrible, right? FanDuel, I lost 86% on FanDuel, right? In cash games, but in DraftKings, made a ton, especially on the night slate. I decided to play the night slate because it was 3 games. Because I didn't have enough volume. I didn't get enough in, right? Because I was looking to get like 3,200, 3,300. So I decided, like, okay, instead of playing, there was not enough soft action. Instead of filling out more on FanDuel, I said, I'll just play the night slate on DraftKings. And then I entered some like late, like 300-person GPPs, like for overlay, like at the end, and came in like second place in those. So that's why 262% in those. But still, like, look, I still lost. I lost a ton. So it went from 13,178, right? That was at the end of 2-8. And then went down to 12,513. So that's like what, a $650 drop or something, right? That's what it looks like. $650. But if I was just playing on FanDuel, it would be a $1,500 drop. So smooth out those edges, smooth out these curves instead of it being all jagged all over the place. Now, I want to employ capital in the places where I have the biggest edge, and that probably is going to be FanDuel based on these numbers so far. So I shift more of my action on FanDuel, but it doesn't mean I just exclusively play there. As this number comes down and DK starts going up, then I'll start equaling it out a little bit more. But yes, diversification is your friend. If you're looking to play seriously, okay? Understand, I always come from the perspective that you're looking to play seriously as an investment. If you're looking to play for fun, for funsies, I'm playing a couple of $10 here, $20 there, $50. It's discretionary income. If I bink, great. If I don't, it's the cost of entertainment. Then do whatever you want. I'm not against that. Just always understand that my approach comes from how do we make the most amount of money for the least amount of risk? Okay? And sometimes it comes across as nitty. Yes, I get it. That's my goal. I told you my goal. Can I make the same amount if I had an office job doing digital marketing and web development? Can I make the same amount sitting in my pajamas and talking to you and building some lineups and watching some games, right? I do watch games every once in a while. Yeah, that's my goal. If I don't make $1 million, that's I failed. I didn't make $1 million this year. Like, no, that's not my goal. If it's great if it happens, but it's not my goal. Let's see. Couple more questions. Wednesdays, it's usually a shorter show. I have a meeting afterwards with the lineup HQ team. We got some new stuff. You got some more tool tips. Look, if you don't know what something is, just hover over the I button, right? We got tons of stuff in the I button, right? Did we fix them? Did we fix the player groups? Let's see. Yes, they did my suggestion. You can now obviously rename your builds, but instead of it side by side, it's underneath, right? So you hit that, you go whatever, you bang your head against the keyboard, and there you go, right underneath. So you could have a lot more builds here. They had it before yesterday, the rename was on the sides. See, I get things done, right? I complain and I get things done. So stuff happens. And then you have information stuff. People don't look. Delete this build. There you go. No lineups, no problem. No lineups, no problem. Doesn't matter. Jungle Boy asks, how much are you willing to risk point-wise between players in the same price bracket? Example, player A is 6,500 and projected ceiling is 49 versus player B being 6,500 and his projected ceiling being 45. Well, the answer, Jungle Boy, is I don't care about the players, I care about the lineups. Right? How lower owned is the guy with the lower projection? And how does he fit? Does he make sense in that lineup? So, for instance, You have two guys. You're essentially saying the example is player A and player B are both the same price, and one is 4 points lower than the other. Well, how much ownership discount are you getting by sacrificing 4 points? If the answer is you're not getting any ownership there, they're both going to be 20% owned. Well, then you play the one with the higher projection because they fit the same spot in the lineup because they're both the same price at the same position. But if the guy that's 4 points higher is also, that guy's 40% owned and the other guy is 4% owned, in that line, depends on the lineup that now it starts depending on the lineup that you're playing them in. Okay? Because in a vacuum, you'd say, oh, why not take the lower owned guy? He projects for 4 points lower, but he's 10 times less owned. I should be taking that guy. Yes, you should be taking that guy if the rest of your lineup is too chalky, where you need the leverage. The leverage is more important to you than the projection. But let's say you have a lineup with that already fades the chalky guy. That has there's enough leverage already in the lineup that you're playing. Well, now you want to play the guy with the higher projection. You've already gotten enough leverage for the contest you're in. You don't need any more. To sacrifice another 4 points for 36% ownership less, you don't need it. You'd rather have the points at that point. So in that type of lineup, you're going to play the 40% owned guy that has a 4 point higher projection. This is what I mean by lineups, not players. So you're not judging between those two players. What's the lineup you're playing him in? What does that already look like? If it was yesterday, for instance, right? We take a look at ownership yesterday. Like if you were already playing Jeremy Grant, Nikola Vucevic, Dejounte Murray, John Wall, and you're trying to decide between Sterling Brown, like James, whoever, Sterling Brown or Willie Hernangomez, right? Well, you're already playing like the four chalkiest guys. Willie Hernangomez projects for 4 less points, right? It's the same type of situation. But in the lineup where you're playing these 4 guys, you need leverage. So you're going to sacrifice the 4 points and you're going to play the lower owned guy. Let's say you're building a lineup that doesn't have Jeremy Grant, doesn't have Nikola Vucevic in it. Like it doesn't have either of these two in it. Now you're going to play Sterling Brown. You don't need to sacrifice anymore. You don't need the leverage. You need the points now. So in that lineup, you're more likely to play Sterling Brown and not Willie Hernangomez. So these decisions that you make for DFS lineups are not 1v1s. They depend on the lineup that you're playing and the contest that it's in. You have to start with what contest, what lineup, what players, not the other way around. Most people think the other way around. What players do I want to play? And then how do I fit them in a lineup? And then what contest are they in? That's the wrong way of thinking. Start with the contest, then the lineups. Then you figure out what players fit the lineup that I need that would be plus EV in this contest. There could be 1,000 combinations, right? You could have one this way, one that way, one this way, one that way. You could play, right? That example that you have with player A and player B, you could make a lineup with player A. That's mathematically equivalent to a lineup with player B. It just depends on the rest of your lineup. So it's not a matter of do we choose between player A or player B. So which player are you prioritizing in this specific lineup for this specific contest? You already have other slots filled in. Do I need points or do I need leverage? Do I need projection? Do I need relative value? Well, if you need projection, because you already have enough relative value, play the higher projected guy. If you don't have enough leverage, but you have a high enough projection, then you need leverage. So you pick the second guy. Okay. Let's see. Any last questions before we get out of here? Let's see. The best GPP player makes how much in a year? That's Brian C. That's who knows? The best, it depends what stakes you're at. I mean, you should be thinking in terms of ROI, not like raw money. If you're only playing the quarter arcade, you're probably not going to make $100,000 this year. But in comparison to the quarter arcade, if you were to make $20,000, that would be like, whoa, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of ROI. free copyright music, that can't be your real name, right? That can't be your real name. Why don't everyone use their real name on YouTube? What am I supposed to call you? Is copyright your middle name? FCM, free copyright music, right? Mr. Music. So starting with the tournament lineup players, how would you build a lineup for a small contest versus a large contest? Well, a small contest needs less leverage. Large contest needs more leverage. I've gone through this before. I go through it in my course. Smaller contests, you'd rather have more projection. You don't need millions of leverage. I need to play 7 to 7 1% owned guys in a 300 bank contest. You don't need that. You don't need as much leverage. Don't have to sacrifice that much median in smaller field contests. In large field contests, you do. Right? I mean, that's just the game theory of DFS, which is what you could pick up. Theoryofdfs.com, 15 hours, audio masterclass. It's a lot of the concepts that I talk about on this show. But it's a little bit more structured process, structured education. You have me in your pocket. Me and James McCool, we go over everything. Right? Game objectives, player selection, expected value, leverage, correlation, construction, risk management, exploits, psychology, miscellaneous chapter with a whole bunch of stuff. Right? You have all the table of contests here, table of contents. Because I'm going to pick it up. If you're having a hard time grasping some of these concepts, here you go. This is the best way to learn. You can learn on your own. You can piece stuff together. That's how I did it. If you want nice structured education. And the game theory of daily fantasy sports. Doesn't matter if it's NBA. Doesn't matter if it's NHL, MLB. It all applies. It's the same thing. Different sports have its different nuances, yes. But the game theory still applies the same way. So go to theoryofdfs.com to pick that out. Free copy. If you want free copyright music, I guess you go to that guy. If you want to plow your meat, you go to Meat Plow. Right? You go there. Mike B asked, when does the theory of sports betting coming out? No, go get Ed Miller's book, The Logic of Sports Betting. To me, that's the best book about sports betting. If you want to really learn what sports betting is and how the market works, how sports books work, get Ed Miller's book, The Logic of Sports Betting. I've read that. That's exactly how it works. So I don't need to make that. Ed Miller already made it. So go read his book. You'll see it's the same type of concept, right? In sports betting. Sports betting people are like, well, what are the picks? There are no picks. There are no picks. It's what's the valuation in the market? What do you think is going to, like, I bet on Bucks plus 3.5 in the Super Bowl. Didn't bet on Bucks plus 3. I didn't even think the Bucks were going to win. But I thought 3.5, there was value on that side of the line. That's it. Whether or not they win or lose or whatever, just as long as I get that extra half a point on that key number, I think I'm plus EV. Of course, most sports books are offering -3, right? On Kansas City. So it's like, there's no bet there. Nothing, there's no value there. So it's not about, it's like just with DFS. It's not about who do I think is going to do well? I don't know. All I know is that based on projections, that Tampa Bay and the Chiefs that it should be a 3-point line. So if it's anything off, there's value in betting. So it's not about choosing. It's not about researching. It's not about any of that. Like, how could I find the arbitrage between the lines? Right. So you could open up your sportsbook accounts and across. You go to Scores and Odds, which is a better collective site. It's partnered with RotoGrinders, Scores and Odds, and it'll give you, like, here are all the prop bets, here's all the lines, here's the multiple books. And you can see if there's anything that's off, anything that offers value at that moment. An hour from now, it's gone. Right? College basketball game. Oh, it's an 8-point line. An hour later, it's a 7-point line. Well, all the value's gone. Oh well. Right? So you're looking to find the value, and you're going to get edges like so minimal, 3%, 5%. Play your expected return. It's like cash games. Some nights you're not going to find any value because you're like, oh, there's nothing worth betting on, right? This is not what I do. I know how it works. The problem with sports betting is, number one, you get limited. I mean, you're too sharp in some books. You get limited. It's getting the money down. That's the problem. And having enough raw money for that to be worth it to do professionally. That's why it's tough. Much harder to be professional sports bettor than it is to be a professional DFS player. So I'll play DFS, right? Until the peer-to-peer games come out for sports betting, where we can just play against each other and you don't have to worry about trying to beat sports books. But that's my thought. If you want to learn more about sports betting, go get Ed Miller's book. It's on Amazon, right? The Logic of Sports Betting. Okay, so on your way out the door, let me check my mango juice. Can someone go out and get this? Mott's apple mango juice and tell me where the apple juice is. We have to put a lawsuit together or something. It's false advertising. Is it even in the ingredients? It's going to be funny if I don't. No, it says water, apple juice concentrate, mango puree concentrate, and then a whole bunch of ascorbic acid and natural flavors and whatever. So it still lists water as number one, which is what it should be. But apple juice is number two. Shouldn't mango be number two? Mango should taste like mango should be number two. But it's cold. So you've been hitting that thumbs up button. Hit those thummy thumbs on your way out the door. We got a, what is it, 9-game slate tonight? Who knows what's going to happen? We got some OKC, right? SGA is going to be out. We'll get the injury report in 2 hours and then another one in 6 hours. And who knows what's going to happen tonight in NBA DFS, but we'll review it tomorrow on another edition of the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.